Hello everybody and welcome to my channel. Today I'm in a nostalgic mood. I can dig pretty deep back into the past for nostalgia, but I'm only going to go back to 2008. That was the year that Criterion released their first Blu-rays. I had just recently purchased my first Blu-ray player, and only a few months before that I bought my first flat screen television set, 40-inch television set that's still working very well, even though that's a 65-inch one in the corner of the screen there, brand new one from that I bought last year. So in 2008, my first Blu-ray purchase was also the first Blu-ray released by Criterion, and it was, of course, the legendary The Third Man. This is the slipcover. I had a hard time finding it. It's such a narrow, and it kind of folds over, and I had kind of a hard time finding it on the shelf. It was released in November 2008 on the same day as The Man Who Fell to Earth, the Nick Rogue, David Bowie movie, which I never did purchase. I don't know why. It was a movie I always liked as well. And The Third Man, this movie I've seen many times, and I was just on television. I saw it in repertory theaters, but I never had it on DVD, and so I was very anxious to see what this new format looked like. And I don't know how many times I've watched this particular Blu-ray disc, but many times, but not for quite a few years. But I was kind of drawn back to it to watch it again, because of a couple of reasons. One is that I recently watched the Quiller Memorandum, and I love the score by John Barry, and it's sort of reminiscent of the Third Man score. And Barry, I discovered, used a instrument, Eastern European instrument that was somewhat akin to the zither music that so famously made or composed by and performed by I think his name was Anton Karras, who rediscovered in a cafe in his travels through Vienna in this post-war era that The Third Man is set. So another reason was I recently read the collection, the Library of America collection of Manny Farber's film reviews, and he was reviewing weekly in weekly magazines, and he reviewed The Third Man when it came out, and he was one of the few reviewers to give The Third Man a negative review. And I kind of like engaging with negative reviews of movies I love for some reason, especially when they come from somebody like Manny Farber, a critic I very much respected, and his later more famous essays had a big influence on me. Another reason was I had recently watched Senso, the Luchino Visconti movie that was made a few years after The Third Man and starred Lita Valli, and I saw a piece on that where Visconti, who was directing operas at the time and starring a young Maria Callas, and the Senso is an operatic melodrama, far from his neo-realism roots in the 1940s. But Lita Valli sort of plays her role in that movie as he directed Maria Callas in an opera. So it's very over-the-top melodrama, and I loved it. I love melodrama anyways, but I wanted to revisit Lita Valli's performance as she's sort of overlooked in this movie. And Orson Welles, who's barely in the movie, but really it's sort of looked at as an Orson Welles movie, which he didn't have any part in directing, even though in later years he sort of intimated that he directed scenes in the movie. That's not true. And of course Joseph Cotten, he's almost in every scene in The Third Man. And as far as the disc goes, the disc seen here is in perfect condition. So 13 years on, I see no signs of deterioration that I can discern. So hopefully I get another 13 years. That's probably all I might need. And as far as what the picture quality looked like, now I've seen some films recently that came from the same era. This was 49, The Third Man, and I've seen The Gunfighter, All But Eve, and the black and white on those are just fantastic. And I've never seen the movies like that before as they appear on the Blu-ray. And of course, in the repertory days, in which I saw The Third Man probably 2 or 3 times, you would probably never see a really good print of The Third Man. They'd be pretty tired prints of any movie. And repertory theaters are, I miss them greatly. In the heyday of the 1970s, the 60s and 70s in the repertory theater. But the movies we're seeing now on Blu-ray, they never looked like that when you saw them in the movie theater. Maybe on the opening day in 1949, The Third Man looked immaculate. But the picture quality on The Third Man, I gotta admit, from this 2008 transfer, it doesn't look as good, but it still looks great. In 2008, it looked much better than DVDs I had seen. I never owned it on DVD, but I did rent it. And so the picture quality was certainly good enough, and the opening sequence, the closing sequences in the sewers of Vienna, and that's Orson Welles in this very dramatic passage in which he's being pursued in the sewers. And that might not actually be Orson Welles, because Welles didn't like filming in the sewers, and he was very ornery on this project in any case. And they had to recreate the. I think he went down a couple times into the sewers, but he thought they stunk, and so they had to they used a double through many of the scenes where you don't actually see his face. It might actually be the double, and then they recreated the sewers back in England in the studio. This is also great. I love the back cover of this telescopic view of Welles in the distance during this chase scene. The movie also came with a very small, thin booklet. It has an essay and a few other things, but other than that, this movie really has buku extras, as most of the early Criterion Blu-rays did. 2 commentaries, a 90-minute making of the film. I haven't watched the extras in quite a while now, but they certainly made the film, or this release, it makes you want to buy Blu-ray. This was a good Blu-ray to start out with, and I noticed that on eBay, if I had never watched this and they were taking the cover off, it's going for, I don't know, something like $300+. Even the used version of it is I've seen it like $70 for this used version. But there is a Studio Canal version out that you can get, and I think that comes from 2010 when the Criterion went out of print. The Studio Canal Lionsgate released one. I think it's like $13. That picture quality is not supposed to be as good as the Criterion one. Everything really, I can't really add anything much new to what's been said about The Third Man. It's a classic movie, and there's tons of literature by academics and people far more perceptive and articulate than me. But I did, in this viewing, this recent viewing the first time in quite a few years, I was struck by a couple of subsidiary performances, especially Trevor Howard. He plays the British policeman who was in charge of the British sector of Vienna. It was divided up into 4 different sectors, the Russians being involved in that as well. The French and the Americans, I think, were the other 2. And Trevor Howard, he's the decent guy. He wants to get Harry on. The villain, played by Orson Welles, is a lethal, toxic male. and in this movie, he's literally toxic in his use of watering down penicillin. But Trevor Howard is also very sympathetic to the plight of Anna, played by by Alita Valley. And Trevor Howard's assistant is played by Bernard Lee, who played M in I guess the first 11 James Bond movies. And he's much younger here, and he's sort of a whimsical character. He's a very subsidiary character, but he makes an impression. He loves Holly Martin, Joseph Cotton's character, who writes pulp westerns of probably very little literary value, but he loves the Bernard Lee character, the sergeant. He loves those movies, and he's very solicitous to Joseph Cotton's, Holly Martin's character for that reason, just because that's the character that Lee is playing. And it's very appealing. But both those roles are really appealing in contrast to Orson Welles, the toxic male, and then Joseph Cotton, who comes to Vienna unknowing that Orson Welles, his buddy, has become a villain, and he's like the sheriff of the Old West. He goes off in all different directions. He's going to solve the puzzle. He gets one of the witnesses killed, and there's no scene where he even shows any remorse. But Alita Valley, I really liked her in this, and she has a great presence and sadness, and she's a character who's lost. She doesn't really belong in Vienna. She's an actress. She plays comedy. She doesn't play tragedy as an actress. And her real life, in the context of the film, of course, is tragedy. She's serious, she's sad, she smiles just for a minute, and it's a beautiful short smile. And of course, Holly Martin, who has fallen in love with her, thinks it's for him. I'll do it again, as if she's an actress performing for his benefit. So I love her performance in this, and she has such a great strength and kind of fatalistic view of her statelessness. And the whole movie, of course, is famous for creating this great atmosphere of post-war era bombed-out buildings and such. And it was great to revisit. I disagree with Manning Farber. I'm going to go back and read his review to see exactly what he said and engage with that review again. But other than that, I would say if you don't have the Studio Canal, you might want to get it, because this is one of the great movies I think everybody needs to see at least once. Okay, I'll about wrap it up, and you guys stay well, and I'll catch you guys next time.